welcome to this week's meeting. Welcome to this week's meeting of Torah for the Nations, and we're going to be discussing, as we always do, topics that are concerning everybody, but in particular Noahides. And we thank you for joining us. This is Pesach Sherbo from Sfat, and Terry is here from Tennessee, right?
Tennessee.
Troy and Thomas are here. Veronica's here. We hope that more of you will join in with us as we go along. What we do here, there's a lot of people out there doing Noahide discussions and Noahide talks and things like that. But we're between Terry, who is a Noahide, and me, who is a Jew. We're trying to present to you the easy, basic understandings of where you need to be to start with. And we ask you to come in and listen to what we have to say from a simple standpoint. Nothing complicated, nothing big deal thing. It's just a simple understanding of what God wants from every single human being. And then we can add on to it from that. Last week we talked about faith, it will not. We talked some about what holidays, and we pointed out that holidays, if you look around, they're basically all the holidays everybody's missing are made up holidays by religions. But if you look at your national holidays, like July 4th, like Thanksgiving, like Memorial Day, Veterans Day, and all those are holidays for everybody. And holidays that we should participate in a very active way, also on a spiritual basis, not just using them for picnics or big family reunions and things like that. So that was last week's meeting. This week's meeting, I want to talk about Passover because we have Passover coming up in 13 days. Today is the second day of Nisan on the Hebrew calendar. On the 14th day of Nisan at sunset, that's when we have our Passover Seder. That becomes the 15th of Nisan. And everybody knows, I think, the story about the Exodus from Egypt. But before we start talking about it, I want to give you a little backstory on this. I want you to start off at the beginning, because this story is really for every single human being. And what happened to the Jews in coming out of Egypt is applicable to every single human being. And as we know, how do we learn things? By reading stories, by parables, by taking things and we can put them into our lives and see how they fit. And this very real story that the Jews went through applies to every human being. But we went through it, and God put us through it so you could see and learn from it, so you could use it in your own life. If you go to Genesis 15:13, it says, and he said to Abraham, not to Abraham, to Avram, before he changed his name. And this is where he's having a discussion with him. The sun was ready to set, a deep sleep fell upon Avram, and behold, a fright, a great darkness was falling upon him. That's 15:12. 13 says, and he said to Avram, you shall surely know that your seed will be strangers in a land that is not theirs, and they will enslave them and oppress them for 400 years. And also, the nation that they will serve, I will judge, and afterwards they will go forth with great possessions. But you will come to your forefathers in peace, and you will be buried in a good old age. And the fourth generation will return here, for the iniquity of the Amorites will not be complete until then. Now it came to pass, the sun had set, it was dark, and behold, a smoking furnace and a firebrand passed between these parts. Now this is the covenant God made with Abraham through the parts of the animals that were cut up. And that place, by the way, is about a 40-minute ride from here, but it's in a closed military zone, so we can't get to it to visit that place. I forget the name of it. But on that day, the Lord formed a covenant with Abraham, saying, to your seed I have given this land from the river of Egypt till the great river, the Euphrates River. So the land of Israel that he gave to Avram covers a huge, huge amount of territory. Israel has never been that big in all its history up until today. It's half of Turkey, all of Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, most of Iraq, and it goes down, Jordan, I think, and Egypt down to the Nile. Now, here we are at the time of Avram, and God is speaking with Avram, and he's telling him, know that this is going to happen. You're going to be strangers for 430 years in the land, and I'm going to take you out of there and bring you back here, which is back to Canaan, which is now Israel. What is he telling Avram? And they later named him Abraham. He's telling him of the whole story that's going to happen down in Egypt and the slavery that's going to happen there. And he also says, I'm going to bring you back from there. So he's already set it up. And we know the story. Egypt goes. Everybody goes down to Egypt to become a great nation, and the whole thing with the Pharaoh. And everybody knows the story. I don't have to repeat it now. You can read it if you don't know it. Then God says to Moses, I'm going to take you out of the captivity that you're in, and I'm going to make a nation out of you. Now, here's what's happened. See, let's put it in today's language. God's telling Abraham, I got this great plan for a debut in the world, so everybody's going to know me. Here's what it is. You guys are going to go down there. You're going to be down there for this amount of years. You're going to be slaves down there. And then I'm going to supernaturally, with miracles and wonders, I'm going to take you out of there, bring you out and back home. And when I do this, the whole world is going to know who I am. They're going to know how strong I am. They're going to recognize me. They're going to know that I am the creator of all and I'm the God of all. And we know the story. The plagues, which he started out with natural plagues and then went to supernatural, coming out of Egypt, the parting of the Red Sea and the drowning of the Egyptians in the Red Sea, and then the march, it turned out to be 40 years to go up to the Jordan and come into Jericho. Don't have to repeat the whole story now. The point is, here's what's happened. What did Jethro tell Moses when he met him in the desert? Man, I've worshiped all the gods. Man, I know them all. There is no God like this God. Your God is the God. Your God is the most powerful God. And he did a sacrifice to him. Understand, this is exactly what God was trying to show the whole world, the Creator. Now, I'm going to fast forward 40 years. The Jews go across the Jordan River. They come to Jericho. Josh fit the battle of Jericho, Jericho. Everybody know that song? The walls came tumbling down. After that, Rahab comes to Joshua. And he questions her. And she said, look, the whole world was afraid of what was going to happen when you and your God came out of that desert. The whole world's been talking about it for 40 years. You've melted their hearts. They're stone afraid of your God. Are you going to just wipe out the rest of the world? What's going to happen? This is so important to understand that back then the whole world knew who God was. Everybody, there was no question. The God of the Hebrews, the God of Israel. He was the God. There was no more powerful God. He controlled everything. All the other gods were just little pipsqueaks compared to him. And all the other gods were man-made gods. People could take a tree, cut it down, take part of the trunk and make a god out of it and put it in their home and pray to it and ask it for food and ask it for rain and ask it for all that. And the rest of the god, the rest of the tree, they burned to cook their food on and things like that. And they could talk all they wanted to the other part of the tree. It's still a tree, but they called it a god. God, this was his debut. to the world. Down the South, they used to have something called the debutante's ball, if I remember right, where when a young lady hit 16 years old, I think it was 16, all the rich families, they would dress their daughters up. They all became 16 that year, and they presented them on a stage, and people, the suitors, the young, wealthy boys would sign up a little dance on their card, and they try to match the people up. This was God's debut to the whole world. Before then, what did they know about him? Flood. What did they know? They even didn't, at that point, who knows if they even gave that creator credit for that. Well, that was a natural disaster, but my God saved me. Who knows? I don't know, and there's no writings about it. The point is, it was a debut to the world for God, so everybody would know who he is. But at that point, it says God says everybody's going to know me, and everybody's going to know Moses, my servant, and believe in me and believe in Moses, my servant. This is very important. Moses was the Messiah of the time, but it was not a spiritual redemption he did with the people. It was a physical redemption out of Egypt. Then God wanted to meet everybody, and we all know the story. But the main thing is, if you take the components of the story, take Mitzrayim. Mitzrayim was a place that held people down, held them back, held them in the fleshly world. That was Mitzrayim. Then we have Pharaoh and Moses. Moses is the part of you that wants to do the right thing and go in the right track. And Pharaoh is the other voice in you that says, nah, you don't have to listen to that. Do a little bit here, but come over here with me. Because the minute you follow Pharaoh, you're worshiping an idol, which is yourself or whatever idol you're worshiping. Inside of us now, every day, we go through this battle. Every person goes through it. And I think what I'm going to do is just read what I posted this morning in case somebody didn't see it. It's called The Inside Story of Passover. I didn't write it. It's from Thought from the Day from Chabad. In each one of us, there's an Egypt and a Pharaoh and a Moses, and freedom and a promised land, and every point in time is an opportunity for another Exodus. Egypt is a place that changes you to who you are, constraining you from growth and change. Pharaoh is that voice inside that mocks your gambit to escape, saying, how could you attempt being something today you were not yesterday? Aren't you good enough, just as you are? Don't you know who you are? Moses is the liberator, the infinite force deep within an impetuous and all-powerful drive to break out from any bondage, to always transcend, to connect with that which has no bounds. But freedom and the promised land are not the static elements that lie in wait. They are your own achievements, which you may create at any moment in anything that you do, simply by breaking free from whoever you were the day before. Last Passover, you may have not yet been begun to light a candle or some other mitzvah. Maybe you were still in idolatry last Passover, last Nisan, this time of the year. And maybe you're still waiting for that potential to be fulfilled. But this year, only defy Pharaoh and light up your world with unbounded light. What we're talking about, and I used to use this in one way or another to teach my children, we act as if we tell the story that the Jews, the Passover table, tell a story as if it happened to me. Not that it's old history, not that it's Old Testament. It's actually something that happened to me. And everyone listening to me now, and everybody watching, they have an incident in their life they can compare it to. You've broken free from something. You've changed yourself for the good. You've decided to become that person that has a good relationship with God. And like Terry, how did you put it, Terry? That that part of you meets God, and the part of you that meets people in the public, it has to carry over. It has to be part of that. It is not a religion. It's what God, the creator, the one who created you, wants. That he wants you to do and he wants you to be. You have that potential in you. Nobody does not have the potential. All you have to realize is it's there, and all I have to do is turn my attention to the proper place, get rid of the Pharaoh, and go forward with Moses, or the spiritual side, the redemptive side, the part of you that will live forever. So do Noahides have to celebrate Passover? No. Do you have to think about it? Do you have to look at the depths of it and what you can learn from this? Absolutely. The Jews were commanded to have this Passover Seder every year, to beat it into their children, how you beat it, speak it into their children's hearts, make sure the children know this isn't ancient history, it's something that's happening right now here today. But by doing that, also, you are the same way. We use this every day, by the way, not just on Passover. It's a good time to tell a good story, and what happened back then, make it current for the kids. Because, if you look back at history in your own lifetime, there are things that happen, and if you tell somebody you were around when such and such happened, oh, that's a good story. They don't connect to it in any way. I can sit here, I can tell you where I was when JFK was assassinated. To most people listening to my voice right now, that's ancient history. What difference does it make? Where Robert Kennedy was assassinated. See, but these made big impressions on me, but I can tell the story all I want. It's not going to make a big impression on somebody else because they didn't live it. So each of us has to find that story in us where we have broken the back of Pharaoh and going forward in a proper way, being a better person tomorrow than I am today. And we have to think about it every day, but Passover is a good time to use it to teach to your kids. You don't have to have Passover Seder. You can just remember the incident. You can talk about what happened to the Jewish people. And it is a teaching for all the world, and it is. And this huge debut of God, what happened? Where did he go? Why isn't he with us every single day? Well, but he is. The Jews ask, where was God during the Spanish Inquisition? Where was God during the pogroms in Russia? Where was God during the Crusades? Where was God during World War II? Where was he? He doesn't do things supernaturally right now. He will protect you supernaturally because you'll never know that happened. But he doesn't perform these huge, great miracles now because he turned the world over to us to handle, and we're making some wrong decisions. We're going the wrong way. And it's human beings that cause all these tragedies, not God. He can't step in and change the decision you make. The only thing he can do is show you somewhere along the way the bad decision you made. God's not going to put his hand on your heart or push you backwards or grab you and hold you close and say, no, you can't do this, bad boy. He can't do that. He can't do like he did with Nadav and Avihu back on the 8th day of the swearing in of the judges, where he struck them with lightning. Can you imagine every time somebody did something wrong, God struck them with lightning? What would happen to your free choice? You'd be scared to death to make a choice. He doesn't want that. He wants you to freely hook up with him. Everything is in the 5 books of Moses. It's in the prophecies. It's in the writings. And he wants us to make a decision based on knowledge, based on walking with him, but knowing who he is. Now, who is he? I think everybody concedes that what happened in Egypt is true. It's not some made-up fancy fairy tale that somebody made up. The crossing of the Red Sea, the 40 years in the desert. Everybody believed, even the Muslims believe that. So what happened between then and now? We did it, not God. And the next time we see the supernatural miracles is going to be And the Messiah, when he comes, is not going to be doing anything supernatural. It's going to be giving people a chance to turn and see the right thing before it's too late. Nobody's going to be forced to do anything. That's why the Jewish people are the only people that have never captured people and said, believe what we believe, or we'll cut your head off. The only people. I was talking to somebody about this today. We went through the history of the world and all the people that did it, and there's a long list of people. But I've always stopped with like the Romans or something. You know, I didn't go any further. But then I read a story last week about the Mormons in Oregon. And the wagon trains that came through, the people that were not Mormons that they didn't want there. They did the same thing. I mean, I'm not trying to point a finger at anybody. I'm just saying that this is history. You cannot find where the Jews ever did that in our history, because God forbids us to do that. We're not to conquer lands. We're not to force people to believe things. We're supposed to. What's happening today is just phenomenal. This tidal wave of people leaving other religions, and specifically Christianity, and looking for truth. But what's happened is Christianity has left its footprint everywhere it goes. And people think that they can teach about this history and interpret it the way they want. And then they get on the internet and they interpret it every which way but loose. On my post today that I put on, that I just read to you, I had two people come on there and tell me about Messianic and the blood sacrifice of the Messiah and all this kind of stuff. I deleted their posts because this is not my posts are not forums for debate or to allow other people to put incorrectness out there. And I just don't need it. And I will every time delete comments like that. I'm pretty straight line. We're here to help and not add to the arguments that are going on out there. People are free to believe whatever they want. God gave them the freedom to choose. I do too. But I'm going to come forward with the truth that comes right from God, through Moses, through the fathers, and the whole succession that comes right up to me today. And I was telling somebody today, I've been around all these other places. I've been there, done that. I've seen it all. So I know what I'm dealing with is the truth. Shara did too. She spent 40 years as a non-Jew looking for the truth. And she found it with the God of Israel. And she knows the truth. Nobody can convince her. She knows who God is. I know who God is. You guys know who God is now. Other people need to know who God is. It's that simple. This whole story of Passover is God setting up, telling us in advance, this is how I'm going to introduce myself to the world. I'm going to come out on the world stage with a big bang. And everybody's going to know me. It's going to melt everybody's hearts, and they're going to be afraid of me, and they're going to come to believe in me and in Moses. Why Moses? Because they got to believe that God gave Moses the word to give to us, the whole world.
I had an interesting thought that I haven't had before on the story. Yes, we've all had. I'm just going to use my life as an example. I was born into a home that the family already attended a Christian denomination. So in essence, I was, metaphorically born into slavery. But when you even go back a little bit before Passover, you go back to Moses' encounter at the bush, and he says, "Who shall I say who sent me?" And Hashem says, "You will tell them, who sent you." And in essence, Israel is a type of Moses, because when we come out of the slavery, who do we turn to and say, like Moses, we come to you, who sent you? You know what I'm saying? We say to the Jews, who sent you? You're like Moses saying, Hashem sent us. And he sent y'all. So you're typically like a Moses to us, introducing us to who sent you. That's just a thought I had.
No, that's a very good thought. See, and that's true. But we have a problem, and we're trying to work through it. The Jews are trying to work through it. And in the meantime, maybe some misinformation is going to get spread. There are different ways, and we know as Jews, there are different ways to have a relationship with God, and customs and things you do, and some differences in prayers you say, and things like that. And then there are the ones that think that people have to do like Jews do. And then there are the ones that know that they don't have to do like Jews do, other than have that communication that with God, that every human being needs. So we get teachers who some teach this way and some teach this way, and some give you a lot more rules to follow and all that kind of stuff. But what we're trying to tell you, and what Terry and I are trying to get across to everybody, is that take it one step at a time. Take it slowly. Just the first thing that has to be done is just the hardest thing you could possibly do. Your head has to be changed. And this was one of the hardest things that the Jews had to go through in their 40 years in the desert. That they had to change their way of thinking. Have you ever heard you can take the girl out of the country, but you can't take country out of the girl? Well, they took the Jews out of Egypt. They couldn't take Egypt out of the Jews. It took a generation to do it. It took a generation to do it. And it still actually took more time, kind of. And then certain things happened to the Jews. They stumbled and fell along the way and got up. It was pretty tough haul up until now. But what I'm saying is you have to pick your teacher. And when you hear what your teacher teaches you, realize there's another teacher over here teaching a little bit different, but doesn't make it wrong. And a teacher over here teaching a little bit different and doesn't make it wrong. And me teaching it a little bit different and doesn't make it wrong. They're all doing one thing. They're doing it according to Torah. Some do it deeper, some do it less. I've taken the approach that we're going to start from the beginning. The easy way to do it. If you want to lift 100 pounds, you can only lift 30. You can't lift 100 till you've lifted 35 and 40 and 45 and 50 and 55 and 60 and so on. So you work your way up to the 100-pound bar. But not everybody even wants to do that. Some people, they pick up to 30 and they're happy. Some people get up to 40 and they're happy. Some people go on a diet and they lose 5 pounds and they're happy. Some lose 15 and they're happy. Some lose 50 and they're happy. But the fact is they're losing weight and they're getting healthier. And always when you get to a goal, let's say you decided you're going to lose 10 pounds. And you lose the 10 pounds, you keep it off for a couple, 3, 4 months, which is really a big accomplishment. And then you decide I'm going to lose 5 more pounds, and you hit that goal. Once you achieve the goal you're getting to, you find something out. You'll rest with it for a while, and then you find, wait a minute, there's a little bit more to learn. There's a little bit more to think about. There's a little bit more to do. But if you don't, it's okay too. With God, it's okay. Everybody to the level of his capabilities. I saw an interview with a young Jewish boy, he was 22, 23 years old. And he said, you know what I love about the commandments and everything God tells the Jews to do? Is I don't have to think about anything. It's like being in the army. Get up in the morning, I know exactly what to do. I know what clothes to put on. I know what to eat and what to not eat. I know what words I have to say in morning prayer, afternoon prayer, evening prayer. I know what I'm supposed to study. I don't have to think about it. If I don't have to think about it, then I can't say, well, I'm not going to do it today. I just say, okay, I'm going to do it. For that boy, that regimen was important for him. It kept him on track. And there are people like me and say, wait a minute, let's look at all this thing from all different sides. But eventually I got to where I needed to go. It's how each person looks at things. And God doesn't say we have to look at them the same way. We don't have to see them through the same eyes. The only thing he wants for every single person is to know who he is, and each one of you to have a relationship with him. Pray to him, talk to him, know who he is, and don't make fun of him. You know, don't defame him, don't whatever. It's not a hard thing to do. When you want to know who God is, you have to strip away all the trappings and ceremonies of religiousness and look them straight in the eye, in quotes, so to speak. And I know that you guys listening today have done that already, or you wouldn't be here listening. And some of you will go to a certain level, and some of you can pick up a book. There are going to be some people who can pick up that book, Universal Ethics, and they're going to love it. I picked it up, but I read through a chapter and a half, and I said, whoops. You know, what do I care about all this philosophy and how this came about and that came, but there are people out there to do. So just because I don't do it, read it, and thank you, Terry, for telling me about the second half of the book. I'm going to go read that. The point is, there's no one right way that everybody has to be walking a single file line, one behind the other, doing exactly the same thing. The only exact same thing God wants us to do is know him and don't do anything to anybody else that we don't want done to ourselves. That's it. It's not hard. Some people want more spiritual. Okay, you can get more spiritual. Some people don't want to go there. That's okay too. Can you have a good life and have the promise of eternal life from God? In other words, go to the next level of life? Of course. It's based on your actions. You have religion say it's not, actions don't mean anything. Well, oh boy, they do. Do you know if Sodom and Gomorrah had changed their actions, they wouldn't have been wiped out? You want an example? Read Jonah. Jonah went to Nineveh and says, whoa, guys, you got to change your actions or God's going to get real angry and you're going to be destroyed. And they changed their actions. He didn't say you have to throw away your idols, you have to get down on your knees and give everything to God. There you go. Jonah.
This teaches what the sages teach also that you don't get in the plain reading, but what the sages have taught throughout the years. This book, besides the Torah itself, changed my life in a drastic way.
Yeah, we see
learning what it really means changed my life, changed my worldview, changed my human view.
But you had eyes to see. Some people don't want to see it. They don't want to see it that way. They don't understand that Nineveh was saved because they simply changed their actions towards one another. They didn't go start praying 3 times a day and offering sacrifices and doing anything else.
All right.
They simply changed their actions. And they weren't Jews, and they got saved. The city wasn't destroyed. At least not at that time.
I mean, most y'all know that I'm part of the Beard Villains here in the chapter in East Tennessee. And last night we had a cookout, and some of y'all have seen pictures I've posted, in a very wide variety of men, let me just say. But I'm going to be honest with you. This book helped me relate to those guys. They're the type of guys, because of my past upbringing, I would have shunned walking down the street, wouldn't have given them a chance. But when I go in now and I get together with them and I hear their personal stories and what things they go through, and I look at things and I approach my life as part of being a part of that chapter through what I learned in the book of Jonah.
That's good. That's really good. You know, we forget sometimes that God created good and everything good. That means every human being, no matter what you think of him, he's got good inside of him. No matter how you picture him, he's got good inside of him. He can change. He can do what God wants. And it doesn't mean you got to eat certain foods. It doesn't mean you have to do sacrifices twice a day. It doesn't mean you have to pray twice a day. It just means you have to have a relationship with him and use your mouth with him. Talk to him. Pray to him. Talk to him. He's your best friend. He's your father. He's your king. And whenever you go to do something, you consciously live. In other words, I'm going to go out and do this today. Was this line up with something God would want me to do or not want me to do? I have a friend of mine who's got a band, and he's a Jew, and he goes into pubs and goes into all kinds of places where last thing you'd think anybody was spiritual or anything. He sings songs about the God of Israel. He sings songs praising it, the God of Israel. He sings songs about how everything God created was good. He goes into these places. Now, there are religions that say, don't go near those places. They're the devil's doorstep and all of that. God says, I don't care who you think it is. Go in there and talk to these people. There's good in everybody. And it's important that we understand it. No matter what somebody says, no matter how we think they said something goofy or whatever we think of them, there's good in that person. No matter what they did, there's good in them. Tell you a quick story, true story. On Shabbat at our synagogue, after morning services, we had a meal, for everybody's men and women, and they were in their section, we were in our section, and there was beer, and there was whiskey, and there was vodka, and there was good food, and all kinds of stuff. And one guy decided he was going to disrupt the whole thing, and he did. He was successful, and it ended up a shouting match between him and the Gabbai, the congregation manager. And finally, I took a step up and just put an arm around the guy and walked with him outside to get him outside. And then I wouldn't let him back in because there's too much shouting going on. This guy who totally disrupted everything and broke the peace of Shabbat, and he's a Jewish guy, he's not, and started this whole thing, and put some pretty bad feelings in some people's heads. I had to go outside and I had to treat him as if he was the best guy in the world because there is good in him. And I had to forgive him for what he did, so I could even talk to him. Now, there are people that every time they see him, they're going to yell at him, and every time they see him, they're going to feel bad, and every time they think about it, they're going to feel bad. Look, guess what God did to me today? From my front door in Kikar Miganim, right across the street, there's a falafel place, and he serves coffee and stuff. That same guy sat there all day long drinking beer. I saw the guy all day long. He disrupted. It was a birthday party for me and the rabbi's son, who was 3 years old, was going to get a haircut up at Meron. That's when they're 3 years old, the young Jewish boys get their first haircut. And we were having a great party, and we were having a good time until this guy decided he was going to undo the good time. Fortunately, it returned back to its good time, but he was in front of my face all day long today. He was sitting there, and I don't think he knew I was at the door across the street, sitting there drinking beer. And when he finally left, he was there about 5-6 hours. When he finally left, I went over to the store owner. I said, do you know this guy here? He says, yeah, I know this guy. This guy's lived his whole life here in the spot. And he's one of those guys that God sends to you to test you. What are you talking about? Oh, that boy will push you to the limit. He'll push you right over the edge if you let him push you over the edge. That's who this man is. He's always been that way, and he always will be. Now, I didn't tell him what happened at the synagogue. But that's exactly what happened. He pushed the guy to the limit. He pushed a lot of people to the limit. And he says, that's just his job in life, to test people, push you to the limit, see if he can make you step over the boundaries between the spiritual and the fleshly. You guys know people like that in your life.
Yeah.
Probably work with some. They're there just to test you. And it was just amazing. This guy showed up at 10 o'clock this morning, sat down at the table right in front of my place, and drank beer all day. Didn't move. I'm saying, why is he sitting here all day? What's going on? So after he left, I went over and talked to the owner of the restaurant. And then when he told the owner of the restaurant, told me that, I said, okay, now I know why God had this man sit in front of me all day. It was a test for me to see what I was going to go over and yell and holler at him, or knew you were a bad boy or something like that, which I didn't do. But it was hard not to go over and talk to him. And then somebody else came over to me and said, you know that man that's sitting over there? I said, yeah, I know. He says, he told me to go to your synagogue and apologize to everybody for the way he acted on Shabbat. So I told the guy, don't do it. He's got to go and do it. He can't send a messenger. If that's what God wants him to do, he wants to feel better, he has to go do it himself, not send a messenger. But the point is, we go through these things. It's in Egypt. It's in Egypt. And you got the Pharaoh's voice telling you to do this. You got Moses telling you to do this. In every situation, it is something that's trying to squeeze you and hold you back and not let you move forward and be a better person. So everything that happens, you have to say to yourself, there's good in this person. I know there's good in this person because God made everything good. He didn't create anything evil. How do we know this? Man creates evil by his decisions. We're all born with free choice. But you know what? You get to a point where you have to say, okay, God, I don't want anymore. I'm with you. So whatever you say is fine. If I don't understand it, if I read it and don't understand it, I'll understand it later. But if you say it, that's it for me. We all have to get to that point. It's cancellation of self, cancellation of the ego, cancellation of the me. You know, I remember I saw, I think her name is Joyce Myers, a woman preacher, and she does this little robot thing where she goes around the stage, what about me, what about me, what about me, what about me? She has no idea how close to the truth she is. She doesn't see the whole truth. Because that's what we all do. What about me? What about me? It's all about me. What about me? Now, what about God? What does God want? What does my king want? What does my father want? And he's everybody's king. He's everybody's father. Not just the Jews. He's everybody's father. He's the father of us all. He fathered every one of us because he allowed us to come into existence. So use the Passover time to look at the things going on in your life. And if there is a Egypt there, which is some type of slavery there, hear the Moses, hear the Pharaoh, make your decision and do something about it. I would say, and don't make a whole list and say, I'm going to do this, that, and the other thing. If something comes up, conquer the one thing first. Look what God did with Israel. We conquered, we got through the Dead Sea. Then we had thirst. Then we had hunger. Then we had all these other tests all along the way. Abraham had 10 tests. Moses had tests. They're to make you stronger, but also sometimes when you're in the middle of a test, you learn things you'd never learn if you hadn't gone through it. You can read about somebody else did it. Oh, isn't that nice? Wow, look at this. Oh, feels good. Ooh. Until you go through it, you don't know what it is. Until you have to think it out, until you have to feel it in your heart, until you have to see it in your head. So as we go through the season, and Nisan is the beginning of the months. Now, it's not the first month of the year, but it's the beginning of the months that God told us it was. So we call it the beginning of the months. We know when he calls the new year, which was creation, which was down the road in Tishrei, Elul and Tishrei. But you go from month to month, or from Egypt to Egypt, because we all have many of them in us, and some of them, okay, I'll take care of it later because it's not that big a deal, but some of them are really big deals. And they pull us down and they make us feel bad. But know that God wants you to take care of that Egypt in your life in a proper way. And you have to think, how would God want me to do this? What have I learned about God? Do I go cut the guy's head off? Do I punch him in the nose? Or what do I do? Because just like Terry just said, these new people you meet, everybody's got their own story, and the story in the fleshy world that made them who they are today. And many people could not conquer their Egypts. They're still suffering with them. So you got to have a little bit of understanding, a little bit of empathy with everybody. Now, you don't have to be their bosom buddy. You don't have to be their best friend. You don't have to throw your arm around and say, call me if you need me in the middle of the night. You don't have to do that. What you have to understand is that they're a human being just like you, and they're formed by the way they grew up, and they have their own Egypts they have to go through. Now, everybody can name some big ones, right? Drugs, alcohol, pornography. I'm sure that some people just steal, and they pray to God to help them be successful, you know. But this is their Egypts. You and I have to be smart enough to look and see, okay, this is in Egypt. Let's get through it and let's get on to the next thing. Shira is in some kind of new eating program where they don't eat any kind of refined stuff. No refined sugar, no flour, and you eat so much a day, whatever. And she was telling somebody about it today or yesterday, I don't know. And I heard her tell the person, you know, when I first started out, it was driving me crazy. I was going, it's all I could think about is what I was giving up. All I could think about is I want some of that stuff I'm giving up. Now, 45 days later, she said it's so much easier. It doesn't occupy her mind so much. She can put on a side burner. She can now think about other things and do other things. And I think she just did a video she hasn't done in a while, a teaching video. I think they just got to do something with the sound because it's not high enough and get it up on the internet, which is a good one. She talks about this in it. Everybody needs to identify, not somebody else's problem, your problem. But if you see a problem in somebody else, chances are you have the same problem. That's why you see it. Do you know, I've had a lot of jobs in my life, and I've been manager of big corporations even. And I would hire anybody to come to work. I didn't care. They could be an ex-con, any kind, except sexual, because I need that in the workplace. But other than that, I would take on anybody except a liar. I don't care if you're the biggest thief in the world, you come work for me. Why? Because I know what to do to protect myself against you, but a liar you can't protect yourself from. Someone that lies is always going to lie. Now, why did I say that? I had a point, and it just went right out of my head. The point is that everybody has Egypts. His is lying. And it's awful hard for a liar to prove he's not lying anymore. The thief can walk a straight road. Other people can walk straight roads. You can get over in your head without lying to yourself about what your Egypt is and what you can get out of. Going back to the Egypt and Passover right now, this is the message to the whole world. God wants it to melt everybody's heart, his power. He wants everybody to have that awe of him, that he can do anything. He can do anything he wants. But you know what I love about God? He doesn't change, he doesn't lie. Now, he can do it if he wanted, he's God. To do those two things would be to violate his very who he is. He doesn't change ever. He doesn't change what he says, ever. And he doesn't lie. We can believe what comes out of his mouth, not what somebody tells us it means, but what he says on a very simple level. Many people bend and change his word. But if you go back, and if someone tells you, well, God changed his mind, he's going to do this now instead of something else, they're lying to you. They don't know who God is. God doesn't change. He says that himself. When he makes an eternal covenant with someone, it's eternal. How could somebody believe, you know what, God changed his mind and it's now this way instead of that way? Why would you go believe what the other way is, knowing that if God can change his mind at any minute, maybe I got the wrong thing again? Nobody thinks about that. The best thing to do is stick to the way he created things. Give up to your free choice, which means don't think so hard about stuff. Don't try to bend it and shape it to fit into your life. Just accept what he says. And know it's the truth and know he's not going to change it. You know, if you do that, you've accomplished a great thing in your life. And that puts you on the path of being a righteous person. Just like Noah was righteous in his generation. I'm asking, and if anybody thinks somebody needs to hear or see this, send it to them when I put it up for a share. We've got to tell people that it's not complicated to step out of where you are. And we can help people. We can counsel people. We can help them get through the problems that they're going to have. We don't have magic solutions, but we've talked to enough people that have been there, done that. And of course, I've been there, done that. Terry's been there, done that. I guess you guys have too, Troy and Thomas and Veronica. And we can help people. Shara's been there, done that. She's helping women almost every day on the internet. We must get ourselves ready for what's going to happen. You know, it's real simple. Shara asked me a question the other day. She says, if everybody sees what's happening now with the Noahides and people leaving religions and all of that, why do people want to deny what's happening? It's happening right there. All they do is run after people and say, oh, you're going to hell and all this kind of stuff. But in the end, the prophecy says it's going to happen. So why fight it? Why not just let go of what you think and do what God says? Now, I know you guys, I'm preaching to the choir with you guys here, but maybe somebody else will hear this and say something about it. Now, Terry, you got anything you want to say? Anything you want to add?
Yeah, just a little bit, something I found. This the book, the Noahide Law Study Edition, when it's talking about the festivals, kind of talks a little bit about the different things the festivals, things about the festivals, and some things I'll be honest with you, I'd never heard before. So, for Passover, the way it's put here, I never knew this. And I thought it was interesting, and it's an application for all of us. They write in here, Passover is for grain. It says, on Passover, God decided upon the volume and distribution of the world's grain production. While the liberation from Egypt, observance of the Passover sacrifices, seders, etc., are uniquely Jewish in their concerns, the concern for the whole worldwide, let me read this again. The concern for worldwide food resources is universal. For Noahides, this is a central concern of the Passover holiday. So it's a time, in my understanding of what it is saying here, is that Passover is a good time for Noahides to reflect on the food resources of the entire world, and the source of food, which is Hashem. But I'd never heard that before, and I thought that was really good, and I wanted to bring that out. That during this time period, not only were we escaping our own Egypt, going through our own salvations and things like that, but the food resource for the world. Food can cause a lot of issues in humanity. You know, when people don't have food, you revert to stealing and killing and things like that. So it's like that test in a way. Hashem can test us with our food or with our money and things like that. And so Passover is a good time to reflect on those issues. And a thought I had while Pesach was talking is, we know the Torah is circular. So it's like, yes, we've had our own Egypts, but every year it comes back up. And it's like God is saying, okay, I've brought you out of this, done this for you, but I still have other things to bring you out. And so every year we come back to this acknowledgement that as we grow, there's more Egypts to deal with. It's not ending. At this time, it's not an ending story.
No, you're absolutely right. That's true. Absolutely right. That's a good point. Anybody have any questions? Troy, Thomas, Veronica? Didn't hear anything from you guys.
I got something to say. Well, first of all, that phone call that came in, did that bother did you guys hear that at all?
What phone call?
Okay, then you didn't hear it. But when I was done with it, when I came back on, this was still playing, and you're talking about the guy that bothered you all, tested you. It was just ironic that I come right back in at that point, because that was my mother calling me. And all through my life, whenever something important comes up, that's my person. She knows on Sundays from 11 to 1, I asked her please not to bother me because I'm doing this stuff. But see, she did it anyways. And I used to say she's just screwing everything up for me and all this. But now I don't know what to say. I just try to go with it, but
let me tell you, when it comes to family, especially mom, she's just who she is, being who she is. It has nothing to do with wanting to do anything wrong or bother anybody. That's just who she is. And you just have to accept her. That's who she is. That's it.
oh yeah, I accept it every time something important comes up. She's going to interfere somehow.
But it's got to, inside of you, when the phone rings, oh, that's mom. That's how my mom is. She's going to be calling me every time like that. That's okay. This is who she is. And you have to accept everybody as to who they are.
Because I got, it's called the Jewish app. So when she called, they said, hello, your mother's calling.
Look, all the people that act kind of funny in your life and they bother you about something, whether it's family or not, but especially family, it could be a friend also. If you recognize they're not doing it to aggravate anybody or anything, it's just who they are at this point in time, you just accept them for that, then okay, that's who you are, and I'll accept it. And
I used to think she was punishing me, but I don't know.
Sounds more like a test to me.
Yep.
When it comes to mom and dad,
and at that point,
you gotta understand something. When it comes to mom and dad, you can be 100 and they can be 120, but you're still their little boy.
Yeah.
A child is always a child. I have a daughter 52 and have a daughter 50. They're my little kids. You know, that's the way I look at them. They're my children. So no matter how old they get, they're still my children. The baby's the baby, and the firstborn's the firstborn. And that's the way I think of them. I got this 52-year-old woman I got to deal with. My kids. Parents look at their children like that, and it's okay. That's the way it's supposed to be. That's the way it's supposed to be. Hello, Dvora.
Hello?
See you. We sent out the message about starting an hour earlier, so hopefully we can get more people together next week. This is a trial time, but we're trying to get as many people together as we can because we know there's conflicting times from I know like 3 or 4 hours in a row now, there's broadcasts. There's one at 11, one at 12, one at 1, and one at 2 for Noahides, which is a little tough. So we're going to try to, we're going to find some way to do it. I mean, I can actually, no, I couldn't do it at this time on Saturday because we don't get over Shabbat now until about 8:30, 9 o'clock our time here. And people go grocery shopping and do a lot of other things on Saturday. So anyway, that's all right. Did you have a question besides that, Thomas?
No, it just amazed me that happened. And as soon as I came back onto the site, that's exactly what you're talking about.
Well, but that's what you're supposed to ask me about. And that's the next time you know when the phone rings and it's Mom. Okay, Mom, yeah, how's it going? Hang up and go on with it, you know.
I learned the lesson. I learned the lesson today.
And look, remember, a mother, in most cases, there's nothing stronger than the love the woman created you has for you. Nothing stronger. Hello. There's nothing stronger. She partnered with God, and He had created you. And her love for you is so strong. And so we just have to do that. You know what I mean? We just have to accept it, who Mom is.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Troy, you want to? Veronica? Deborah? Anybody have anything they want to?
Conversation, though.
Pardon?
I said no, but it was a very good conversation. I used to listen to Joyce Meyer when I was a Christian, and I remember that whole robot thing.
Well, she sure got that right. That's the ego. What about me? What about me? What about me? But she doesn't understand it fully. I wish she would, because then maybe she'd join us in the Noahides.
You know, I think what you did today and talking about the Noahide application of Passover and the way you did was real good. And I think we need to, because of these days that when they come and stuff, those who are, you know, coming from various religious backgrounds struggle with, you know, what do I do now when it comes to these times? Because we're reading and studying Jewish things, so they're in our face all the time. But they're not like the Jews are speaking to Jews at that time. So when you take an opportunity to talk about the application for those of us that aren't Jewish at these times, I think if we can add this as part of our program, that when these days come upon, we discuss like what you did today about that day, about what went on historically with Israel, and then as being the light to the nations, say, now this is how it applies to you. You don't have to observe it the way we do it, but this is applicable and how you apply it. I think that would be very beneficial for people. That's my opinion.
Yeah, everything that we have in the 5 books of Moses, every lesson, everything the Jews went through was to show the rest of the world how to handle a situation. It's a handbook. The Torah is a handbook. What we went through, I mean, they didn't have to use it to, I mean, how many, I wonder how many tractor trailers it would have taken to write down 40 years if you wrote all the, you know, all the fun times too. But you don't learn from the fun times. You learn from the bad times. You learn from the mistakes you make. And so that's why God shows the whole world the mistakes we made as people and how other people can avoid those mistakes. And that's what's really, really important. Marinella and Leo, how you doing? We started an hour early. We sent out messages for 2 weeks. We're going to start at what time Pacific time?
8 o'clock, I believe.
Instead of 9.
Yeah, I've got it written down on the thing there where they can look at it. I update it today at times.
We're doing it. We're starting an hour early because there are other people that do it like at different times, and we want people to have the freedom to listen to us, listen to other people. So I apologize that maybe the information didn't get to you guys properly. But
with the hour, Pacific, Central, Eastern.
we can't hear you. It's your microphone is too low.
Oh, it's not. Oh, nice. Oh, okay. Can you hear me now? No?
Now, yeah,
A little bit?
yeah.
Yeah, I was just telling you that sometimes I get confused with this Pacific.
No.
Okay.
No, wait a minute. Stop. Sit right where you're sitting. Say something again.
The time, you know, is
Yeah, we moved an hour earlier.
that's okay. That's okay.
Okay, so we, you know, please, if you can try to be with us an hour earlier next week, it would be really great.
Sure.
Because we're going to do this on a steady basis now, an hour earlier, unless something else comes up, or hopefully we're going to have to change the day.
Yeah.
But we want everybody to get involved and be here and talk with us about everything. Anyway, you'll be able to, in about an hour and a half or 2 hours or 3, you'll be able to watch the whole thing from beginning to end. It'll be up on the internet, so you can watch it. So, but anyway, first of all, let me end this and you can stop the recording and we can sit and chat some still, if everybody's got time. Listen, join us next week. The times are posted on B'nai Connection for B'nai, B'nai Torah for the Nations and B'nai Noah Connection to Israel. The times are there. It's 11 Eastern time, which I think is 8 Pacific Coast time, which is 6 in the evening my time. Everybody's sprung forward, so all the time zones are okay now. Did I get that right? 6, yeah.
Yeah, hold on. I'm gonna post new times.
Okay. And please join us next week. Before I sign off, we sign off this. I just want to say that I'm wishing that everybody that hears this will be able to do their own Passover, their own freedom from their own Egypt. It's blocking them in and holding them back. And that is my prayer for everybody listening. And if you think there's somebody that should hear this video, please share it with them. And if they have questions, make sure they get a hold of us. If you can invite some people, invite them to come to this. And if you want to do some home group work, get a hold of me and we will see what we can do to meet with you at the time through Skype or through Facebook to help you in your home groups. If you want an individual, we'll do that too. It doesn't make any difference. 1 person, 2, 10, doesn't make any difference. Thanks, guys, for being with us.
Okay. Shalom, shalom.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
You.